Hello, my name is Talisa.
And I'm Gabriel.
And we're a couple of therapists.
So we wanted to do this first intro video and session.
A little session, if you will.
To kind of introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about, the goal with this, I guess, podcast.
Right.
And so I'll let you kind of give a little brief intro.
Well, you might be wondering, what are these two therapists doing in social media, and why are they doing yet another podcast? Yet another two people thinking that they need to give their 2 cents, which that makes sense. I get that. But we find ourselves having a lot of conversations about mental health, therapy, social, everything, life, culture. And we wanted to bring that into the digital space, really give our views and our opinions, because I think at the core, we just like to yap.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. And what better place to do it than the internet, right? Yeah,
I think we have a lot of interesting takes, I would say. I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, interesting as in from both perspectives, such as, from our regular views and opinions as regular humans walking this earth, as well as from the clinical perspective.
Right.
So I guess that being said, let's maybe talk a little bit about our clinical backgrounds and where we are right now with the field.
So I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I've been licensed for a couple of months already. Before that, I was a registered mental health counselor intern, which it's just a long name for a therapist who has her master's degree, but is still, completing the clinical hours. And so I was under supervision with someone else, and now I am not. I'm licensed, so I'm practicing by myself. And my specialty is in sex therapy. I'm certified with ASECT and MSDI, and I'm currently doing a PhD in clinical sexology as well. That's kind of like my interest in the therapy field.
Awesome. And I am a little bit less qualified. I am a registered mental health counseling intern. I'm still completing my licensure hours. However, I am currently practicing. I primarily see children and teenagers, and in some cases I do family therapy, although it's not my specialty. I am specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy, and pretty soon I'll be certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm currently practicing, finishing my hours. I'm working for an organization, nonprofit, that has been kind enough to give me free supervision, which is great. And I'm about a year and a half away from being licensed. It's
a nice balance between us, because you see kids and teenagers, and I'm mainly seeing young adults and adults. So it's like we see the whole range.
Yeah. I think the elderly we're not seeing.
No, I mean, I would be open to seeing elderly, but I don't think that a lot of them seek out maybe private practice. I think it's mostly
referred by internal, like
hospitals or...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So in our first episode, we wanted to dig a little deep into this social media therapy discourse that we see online and talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. Let's be real. I mean, I think it's a little bit messy. I think we live in a world now where there is an overabundance of accessibility to information, where we are getting bombarded constantly by information, and within that information, a lot of mental health information. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that a lot of this trend of mental health became very popular with platforms like TikTok and, Instagram. And I know there's more platforms out there, but I feel like those are kind of another one would be, I guess, Twitter, X now.
But I think it's mainly TikTok and Instagram. There's like a hashtag called therapy talk, and I feel like mainly post COVID and even in 2020 we saw this trend of people bringing mental health into the digital space much more directly and with much more of purpose and intent. I mean, I even started a podcast in 2020, and because it was just kind of something else to do and some way to bring in the career into the digital life that we were all living in during the pandemic. And some people didn't continue doing their stuff, like me included, and then other people really boomed and created these huge social media presence for themselves. And I think that just spiraled into a huge wave of people, coming into the digital space with mental health tips and therapy tips and all of that.
So I think, and maybe this is my hot take, but I do think that my main concern, and one of the main challenges here with this specific topic, I think it's that because there's so many social media presence of many different people that are speaking about mental health, I think the challenge here is identifying who is qualified and who is not qualified, right? Because in the social space in which we live in today, I mean, we oftentimes kind of see past that, like qualifications, and then we're like, oh my God, this person has 3.5 million followers. Whatever they say must be true. Yeah. So I think that's kind of my main concern, that, we do live in a world in which there's so much going on, and a lot of people need mental health services, right? And because we have this easily accessible platform such as Instagram or TikTok or whatever you use, people seek out services and information through these platforms. And oftentimes some of that information, unfortunately, is not the best. It's misleading. It's misinterpreted. So I think that it's important that if you're in need of mental health services, such as therapy, I think that it's important that if you are searching for something online, to kind of fill that gap of need, I think that it's important that you really check those sources and see who's talking to you, right? Because oftentimes, these influencers, right, they're talking to you. They're like, I've seen so many videos of them, and it's nowadays, hopefully we get to the point, and not because of that, but I think hopefully we get to the point where we can make these videos like more aesthetically pleasing and like easier on the eye while still providing the information, because I feel like the complete opposite is out there now. Like, videos look amazing. Their setups are insane, insane backgrounds. And then the info is just some basic, if you're depressed, do this 5 things, and mental health in reality is way more complex, it's way more individualized than what we think. We cannot generalize mental health.
But that's the issue, that to make it in social media, you have to generalize and you have to create the hook. We see it everywhere. Like, you have to hook your viewers, and, you have to be either doing a visual hook or a verbal hook. And so you have to tailor it to what the internet and social media likes. And I feel like mental health, obviously, it is super nuanced and it is individualized, and there are certain things that you have to keep in mind. It's not about generalizing, but mental health has kind of like molded itself into the internet and social media instead of the internet and social media molding to like mental health. It's kind of like, how do we fit mental health into the social media world? And that is by creating these videos that have the hooks, and maybe there's super limited information or just packaged information to make it make sense and for it to be visually appealing. And I feel like it's part of the issue that you have a lot of therapy terms, a lot of therapy words and sentences and topics and concepts that people now have access to, which is amazing because of accessibility. But at the same time, if I see one video online and now I'm suddenly like, oh yeah, that's me, but are we really taking into perspective who you are as a person, who you are as an individual, like all the things that make you you? It's just much more nuanced and complicated and complex than that, which the internet, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't like that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I see a lot is also, like these individuals online that, they speak about their journey and what worked for them, and I think that's a big, I'll use the word issue because it is, and it's basically that they would tell you about their experience and what worked for them, but that's the thing. And then we see this, and again, I'm sure you see it all the time. We see this in therapy all the time where, we see two different individuals who have the same diagnosis, right? Because we, in the therapeutic space, we do have to have a diagnosis in order to develop treatment and kind of a path of treatment, right? So you can, and I'll give you a kind of like a basic example. You can have two individuals who have generalized anxiety disorder, right? And that's an established diagnosis in the DSM, which is the book that we utilize to kind of see the criteria for specific diagnoses. So you get these two individuals, they both have general anxiety disorder, but those anxieties and those life experiences are completely different, right? So whatever works for one might be completely different from what works from the other. And I think that's the challenge. That's the issue, that maybe somebody who has generalized anxiety disorder will come into a space where they see this post on social media and there's somebody talking about it, and they might find a common ground and like maybe we have similar symptoms, but who is this person speaking to you, right? Like what are their resources? What are their support lines? What is their economic status? There's so many factors that can affect us on a daily basis, and then that's why social media, I think that's the margin of error there, I would say, in social media, that it generalizes it, so you would never get a full rounded source of information. And then also, this is, I think, might be a good take here to kind of segue into about when, and many therapists have different approaches, but when I see somebody that comes into the office or, and we're doing therapy, they're the expert. I can't pretend that I'm the expert on this individual that, I'm getting to know, right? I might be the expert on the treatment techniques and how to apply different tools and how to navigate that space, to better help them. But I have to cater, and I have to tailor that approach to that individual who is a unique world within itself.
I also feel like we do not give advice. As therapists, we're just putting it out there. We don't give advice. Mm-hmm. We're not going to tell you what to do, because who are we to tell you what to do, right? I mean, yes, we have the clinical experience and the education mm-hmm. and all of that. But at the same time, we hold this position that the client is the expert and that they know what's best for their lives. Obviously, therapists challenge and guide here and there. But I also feel like in social media, there is this thing of you seek therapy tips, you seek the advice, and you have a lot of people giving out advice, which, I mean, some of them are therapists, some of them are not. Some of them don't know what the advice is really, where it's from, or, you don't even know if these people, like you said, if they're qualified, what they're talking about, like where did they get this from. And so because we're in this era of instant gratification, we want everything immediately. And so therapy isn't immediate at all. Therapy's a big process, and sometimes it takes long time, to actually see changes and to implement strategies that will change things for you. And so it's also something to keep in mind when you do consume therapy content online. It's like, yes, it's really nice to have advice and to see these things, but acknowledging that it might not be as instant as you want it to be, and that is okay, because therapy is a process. And if you're only getting mental health support via the internet or social media, then it'll maybe take a little bit more time. You're not with someone guiding you one-on-one. Yeah,
and it's also like progress, especially in therapy. It's not linear. I tell this to some of the parents that I work with, that I see their children, it's not linear. I mean, we might be having an incredible 3 weeks, and something happens, and then everything goes back to square one. And I think that that's the primary, I guess, social media cannot give you that, right? It cannot say like you're doing good, A, B, and C, because you don't have a qualified individual telling you, like I'm seeing these patterns, I'm seeing this, it's kind of, I feel like a bit alienating also, like you're kind of trying to do this self-help through social media. That's not a qualified thing,
And listen, if you have found the mental health advice online, either from therapists or non-therapists, people that are not, don't have the experience or qualification, and you feel like that works for you and you've been seeing changes, absolutely. I mean, literally amazing. What we want as therapists is for you to find what's best for you and for you to find inner, I mean, I'll use the word healing, whatever, but we want for you to find what works for you. And that's something that I tell my clients, like, find a system that works for you, not against you. So I am not here to hate on mental health online therapists. I have a therapist I have a social media as a therapist. It's also kind of like for visibility and for education. Like sometimes, you want to put out educational content. And so that's something that, no hate at all. And if you find that it's better for you to get that information online than to go to therapy, then absolutely, we're not here to judge your experience at all. It's just what things to have in mind when approaching the online space when it comes to mental health and therapy.
Yeah, and I would say, one of the primary things that, perhaps you want to really look at is, who is this person talking to me, right? Like, are they qualified? Do they have any background in mental health, any specific, qualifications, any licenses that they might tell you, have they worked in the field? But, so you, I guess, make sure that you're doing your research or on where you're getting your information from. Super important. And also really look into the validity of what some of these people are saying. I think we had this conversation before. We're not going to get into it in this episode, but there are individuals out there who have millions of followers to the point where, they're involved in big organizations, that are well-funded, and they don't have a clinical background. They don't.
But the other thing with that, I'll say, is there is a difference between someone approaching mental health in social media or online from a place of genuine passion and genuine appreciation and wanting to educate and all of that, and someone who's using mental health to advance their career because it's trending and because, listen, when I get content online that speaks to me, I feel so seen, I feel heard, and I feel validated. And that's something that, obviously, if we're vulnerable to all of these things and we're seeking connection, we're wanting the support, we want to feel seen and heard, and then there's someone who's only doing it to further their career and to exploit the vulnerability of people online seeking that connection and validation, that's where I have my issue. That you're only doing this because it's trending, because it's getting you followers or likes or money or whatever. And I feel like that's why we come in this digital space as therapists, because it's important for the people with the background and the education to also give their 2 cents,
Yeah, I agree. I think, I wouldn't say important. I would say it's essential for us to really come in and provide our background experience.
Why do you think it's essential?
Huh?
Why do you think it's essential?
It's essential because we did the work. We did the work. We put in the time. Some of you who, and I guess I'll give you a little bit of feedback on the journey that it is to become a therapist. So when I was graduating from high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then I took an elective in my first semester of college that was like, general psychology.
Yeah.
And I
Psych 101?
Yeah, Psych 101. And I really liked it, and I was like, oh my God, I love the mind. And, when you're so ambitious and like, you learn about like all these different approaches and experiments and unethical experiments and ethical experiments and how we've learned so much from the human mind. And I was hooked immediately, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be a therapist. And I had this idea of what a therapist was, and then I did my 4 years of college, and then I was like, oh,
I'm a therapist.
I'm not a therapist, actually. So I had to go in to do my master's, and then I did my 3 years of master's, and then kind of like, and this is, I think it's wild.
I'm a therapist.
I'm a therapist. No, not yet. Now you're a registered mental health consultant.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it takes a lot. It takes, many years. It takes 4 years of college, 2 to 3 years of master's, plus two to three years in licensure hours. And then prior to that, you have to meet all these requirements. You have to do a practicum, you have to practice, you have to work for somebody for free for a year, which was, all therapists who have done this know how difficult that is, especially in today's, economy where things are so expensive and we need to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's essential. I mean, we've put in so much time and effort into being in this field that I think that the great majority of therapists who are therapists, are really passionate about the field, and they really want the best, for the field as well as for the individuals who they treat, the community that we treat and we see. So it's a very different dynamic from, an influencer that says like, therapy has helped me from A, B, and C, and now I want to share it,
And don't get us wrong. We know that there are therapists out there that are not the best.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we're all human beings and we are flawed. So yes, not all therapists are great or good at their jobs, but I also feel like that's where this media literacy comes in. Like, let's vet who it is we're seeking the support and content from. And, you're allowed to be cautious before you interact with the content for sure. And I feel like that's also like how I approach it with my clients or people who want to work with me. I have my disclaimer in my informed consent forms where I say, you can block me from social media if it's going to make you feel more comfortable. You absolutely don't have to engage or interact. And in my social media, I have the disclaimer of, if you are a current or past client, like, please know that interacting with the content might breach your confidentiality. Like, you're absolutely not forced or at all. You don't have to interact with it, and you don't have to be okay with therapists who are online. That is, again, your opinion and your belief. But I do feel like it is important for therapists to find their place in the digital space because it's not going anywhere. We're only getting even more digitalized and more online. It's either you get with it or you're going to be left behind. Yeah. And that's a scary feeling for a therapist. I mean, I feel like sometimes I have that pressure of being online and putting myself out there, not only to use it as a way to market my private practice and my practice, but because you want to provide your opinion and the way that you see things with all of the 10 years of studying almost that you've been putting in the work with. And so it's like, how do we hold these two things at the same time where, therapists online are navigating this really difficult thing of not being too generalizing or, taking it seriously, putting this professional face. How do you navigate all of that at the same time allowing for them to have this space in the digital era? So it's like, it's hard to manage. Yeah,
it's also, I think we as qualified individuals, we definitely compete with the qualified information. Like, and I think that's one of the major challenges of the social media space, right? That let's say that you have somebody, and let's take art. Kind of, I think it's like a easier example that I can give you. So art, for example, you might have artists who are incredible painters, you know, and they take hours and into painting something, and they make it, you know, mean something and feel some sort of way, and they do one post of them through the process and whatnot, and it gets zero traction, right? But then you get somebody who doesn't have the same talent and draws like 3 lines, and they have a following, and then all of a sudden it's trending, and that's, I feel like we also kind of face that challenge in the digital space and social media, where maybe the content that, you know, some of the content that we share is valid, it's backed up by research or by true, you know, applied information, right, within the field. And then we get some person speaking about it like in a casual, random way, and then all of a sudden they're trending and they're getting more traction, and then people are consuming that content more than something that might have a little bit more substance, right?
Because all of it is so subjective too, right? I mean, what speaks to me as a consumer of social media is so much different than what speaks to you as a consumer in social media. My For You page, you don't have TikTok, but my For You page would be so much different than yours, and the way your Instagram Explore page is different than mine, and so it is so subjective. And so that's why also when you are seeing the mental health online, it's like, this post is not for everyone, and it is not intended to be for everyone. If it does not apply to you, then it does not apply to you, and that's okay. I feel like sometimes we get stuck in this place of, what about me? What about my experience? This is, and there's the what's it called? There's a word for it now called the whataboutism, which is really seen in the online space, where it started out with people sharing recipes and of their cooking, and let's say that it's a bean soup, and there's so many comments of like, what about if I don't like beans? Can I what do I do if I want to use something else than beans? And people are like, well, it's a bean soup, like, just don't do it. And so it's like this whataboutism that is really plaguing the internet corner of people feeling like this has to apply to me, and if it doesn't, then what about me?
Yeah. So I do this a lot in my sessions. You know, I think I do it more with teenagers a lot. I'm like, I always disclose, like, listen, this is your time, this is your space. So, you know, I will have some say in some specific things, but you also have a voice and a say. Now, back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, if you feel that any given moment that this is not working for you, then you let me know, and I will do my best to find something that will work for you.
Right.
You know? And I think that's the beauty of therapy, that, you know, we're able to, even in this time in which we're not able to help somebody because we're not connecting, we'll still try to help. And the internet doesn't give you that. That's why people are like, what about me? Because the internet will be like, well, go figure it out. You know, like, it's such a public yet solitary space in a way.
Because if this is coming on my For You page or my Explore page, then, like, why is it not talking to me? You know, like, why is it not appealing to me at the moment? We feel like maybe it has to talk to us, you know, as it comes up, or like if it's here, it has to be because of me. Like, I built this brick by brick kind of way of seeing it, but it's not, you know, the algorithm and all of that. It's a very complex thing, and it has its mind of its own in a way, and so it's not going to be all for you, and that's okay. I feel like it's important for us to validate that a lot of people also feel put off by seeing therapists or the idea of their therapists being online. And I get that. I mean, I personally wouldn't have an issue seeing my therapist in the online space. But I feel like I understand the people that are struggling with that idea and feel like scared, because what if my therapist starts saying things that, you know, we've talked about in session, and that's a super valid concern.
Yeah, which, I mean, clearly full disclosure, is a breach of confidentiality and extremely unethical, especially, if you're not even if you're a licensed clinician, if you're seeing clients under any sort of circumstance, it's completely unethical. And I think we talk about this a lot. We hold this ethical standard to a very high level, because I think that is what gives us the validity, right? And
right.
That gives us I don't know how to explain it, but it gives us kind of like
it's why it's valid that we're here.
Yeah, it's why we are the qualified ones, right? Because we have a specific set of boundaries that we set, a specific set of ethical guidelines that we follow to our very core, to ensure that we preserve, both I guess we preserve the health of our clients in a way, because it's part of health. And then also we preserve this is going to sound like a weird thing, but the purity of the field, right? We're not corrupting it in any way, because we're upholding it to these specific guidelines and standards that it deserves, and that many of us who go through years of education and experience want to maintain. Like, we don't want mental health to become this thing that I saw it in social media, and no, it's still a field, and it's still driven by individuals who really want to help their communities and help individuals, and we care about people leading their highest quality of life.
And there's still value in therapy. I think it's, that's why I say can we hold the two things at the same time, where yes, therapy is super valid and it's super valuable and it's really helpful. And at the same time, therapists are allowed to branch out of the therapy room in a way that upholds the ethical standards and guidelines, and in a way that respects their clients' integrity and privacy. I mean, you will not catch us talking about what we have said in session or what our clients have said in session. I think it's something that we are very mindful about, where in this digital space, like, I've never had a post where I talk about something that a client has told me. And I think that that's important. That's where you also find out what therapists might be going about it in the correct way, if you can, and what therapists maybe are not doing it in the best intentional way. Because you can, I mean, it makes for really clicky and grabby, content, being like, these are the things that my clients are saying to me in therapy. That's something that I feel could go viral, right? But is it ethical? No. And so when you are approaching that, it's also, okay, is this therapist providing education, or is it that she's saying, or they're saying, that whatever is said in the therapy room? And so that's something to keep in mind when you are consuming the content. Also, when it comes to people who are not qualified, well, are they getting their information from Google and just slapping it on with some nice text and some nice filters? Or do they have some experience, some qualification of some sorts? Something to keep in mind as well,
Yeah, I think like we said a little bit earlier, if you will consume any sort of mental health social media information, just do a little bit of research, go the extra mile. If it resonates with you, then completely valid, like you said. But it's important that you have clarity who's providing the information to you.
Right. So with all of that being said, I mean, again, we're here because we like to yap, we like to talk, we like to have conversations. We've been putting the work, and I think that this is us trying to blend in our experience and qualification with the upcoming, digital space that's only furthering and only increasing and evolving. And it's kind of, well, let's just be a part of it, I guess.
Yeah. And one of the things that, that I think is important that we say on this first session, I think that, it's not always going to be about mental health. I mean,
right.
are two therapists that happen to to be together, but we talk about other things and we give our kind of takes with some clinical kind of background, I'd say. But
Right.
we also, we review like movies, books. Like we're still living in this, floating football. So
Right. It's a lot of
Yeah.
sociocultural issues that we also are seeing, in our current society, in our culture. And just kind of like a little pause on that so that we give you a more background of who we are. I'm from Nicaragua. I was born and raised in Latin America, Central America. And I've been in the country since 2015, so 10 years. And I came here to study, and then I just ended up staying. But that's also why I like to talk about these sociocultural and political issues, because we have a different framework, not just the Western, United States one. We also see it from another lens, and so we like to talk about a lot of different things. And you're from?
I'm originally born and raised in Puerto Rico. I moved to the United States when I was 15-ish, 2010. So I've been living here about,
Another 15 years?
15 years.
Don't do the math.
Yeah, so anywho. So I come from a place that technically is part of the United States, but it's very different when you're there. And culturally speaking, it's much, much more
And there's a lot of sociopolitical
different,
issues
yeah.
there too.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So we have a lot of background related to that specific topic, but I think that it's important that we bring that into the session, and we definitely want to give everybody here a space to connect. Eventually, we'll do some questions from you all to really ask us and be part of this. And like I said, you are the expert, so we look forward to doing a lot more of these. I think we said that every so often we'll do one in Spanish.
Yes, we also want to incorporate our native tongue and do some episodes in Spanish for the people who are bilingual or speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you said, we're trying to build a community as well. I feel like part of the upcoming digital space is the lack of connection and lack of community that oftentimes comes with it. And so can we kind of create a community for ourselves where we have this place where we talk about these different things and we're able to express ourselves and also interact with the people who are watching us? It would be great if we had people, send questions or comments and we can discuss and talk about that. I feel like this is also a way for us to find connection and community online, because it's so hard to find that sometimes.
Yeah. Perfect.
So,
Well,
what you can expect from us is just kind of talking a little bit about anything and everything here and there. Like I said, I am specialized in sex therapy, so we'll be talking about sex and relationships as well. And we can talk about movies and books and different cultural and societal topics that come up. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that great first session. We look forward to continuing this journey with all of you.
So stay tuned for the next session. Thanks for listening and watching.
Yeah, well, we got to record the next one.
Yeah, that's true.